Hello everyone, welcome in today's video. In today's video, we'll be looking at who is SCP-40-JP. There was a cat. Not to be confused with SCP-40, the Evolution Child, which is a different SCP. As the thumbnail suggests, we'll be checking out if this SCP is truly the strongest, as many people have claimed, or if it is very overrated. Before making this video, I did not know who SCP-40-JP was. So allow me to go a bit on the journey that I did to discovering who this SCP was, starting off with where most people would describe this character and see them in the YouTube shorts. The SCP was put against Andrew Swan's proposal, the one above all, Featherine, the Weaver, SCP-3812, and even Saitama. Okay, jokes aside, we know that Saitama is nowhere near the strength of these characters, but this was a matchup that someone actually made. What we can gather from this is the general opinion of this SCP is that it is very powerful. However, no one talks about who SCP-40-JP actually is, nor do they talk about if it is the strongest SCP or if it is overrated. No one talks about the details because it's a YouTube short and not a proper video. Now, what I'm going to do is get a text-to-speech to read out what is on the actual SCP wiki. However, I would also say that if you prefer not to have a text-to-speech and would prefer to just read it yourself, there is a link in the description to this SCP article. It is SCP-40-JP, remember? So with that, if you want to skip it, it's over the next 4 minutes. But if you don't or just want to hear out the description, well, here it is.
Description: SCP-040-JP is a well located in the village of, in the prefecture. It is surrounded by a wooden hut, measuring approximately 5 meters wide and 4 meters long. The center of the hut houses a stone well presumed to have been built in ancient times, which descends directly underground. The well is anomalously deep and multiple probes have failed to determine its depth. Although the hut was originally locked tightly with iron chains and multiple padlocks, they have since broken due to deterioration. SCP-040-JP was placed into containment after incident redacted in 1967. Warning: after incident 040-JP 001 in 19, the following contents are prohibited for viewing without memetic countermeasures. Personnel assigned to this project must be treated with Procedure 253, Willow Ashes, at Sector 8120. Close. When a subject looks into the cabin, they begin shaking, reporting that there was a cat. Furthermore, the person will become obsessed with the idea that the cat is here. This effect is not apparent in drawings or images. It only occurs when a person views the inside of the cabin with the naked eye. A camera image only displays the inside of the hut with no sign of the reported cats. Exposure to the object will distort the subject's perception of all domestic cats. Scientific name: Felis sylvestris catus. During interviews with exposed subjects, they reported that any domestic cat seemed to look like an animal with 2 human eyes on its face without hair or other features, staring at them directly when viewed from any direction. Furthermore, the exposed subjects will begin to report that the cat is constantly appearing in the darkness to observe them. There seems to be no consistency in the level of darkness required for the cat to be manifest in. It is unknown why the cat observes subjects. An illustration of the observed cat is attached below. According to a survey conducted by Foundation researchers, it was determined that the location where the cat appears is influenced by the position of the subject's ocular lens or the cornea. In other words, the sightings occur statistically significantly higher in the subject's peripheral vision. This property was demonstrated during experimentation with D-Class in 19. According to the hypothesis proposed by redacted, it is speculated that the dark places in the large depths of the underground structure inside SCP-040-JP have a clear influence on this. Data expunged. Subjects exposed to SCP-040-JP will actively tell others about the idea that there is a cat. Those who have understood this idea to some extent suffer the same cognitive anomaly as the subjects who were initially exposed. It is not known whether the effect is transmitted through a general description or whether a specific trigger word exists, but it is a cat. There is a cat. There are no particular restrictions on the medium necessary to convey that idea, and it is effective even in all media such as speech, writing, images, and paintings. Therefore, it is speculated that the subjects themselves are not directly affected, but carry a memetic anomaly referred to document redacted. It was there. Affected subjects do not act in a suspicious manner, making it difficult to judge whether or not the subject is under the influence of the anomaly after passing through the first stage of exposure. It was a cat. Thank you.
What we can say from this article is that the cat is a cognitohazard. Spreads by either visiting the cabin in the woods, or by just mentioning the cat, which technically should be an info hazard. Now, one thing I noticed in the article, which could be possible scaling or just interesting writing, is the irony in the last couple paragraphs when they talk about the hazard. You see, in the last paragraphs, they talk about how anyone who's subject to the SCP, the cognitohazard, will start talking about there being a cat, and they will spread it. But if you read the article is actually talking like someone infected, saying, but there is a cat, there is a cat, it was a cat. And it even finishes with the same thank you that the very image has as well, implying that the article itself is infected by the cognitohazard. This is very interesting because it could be like it could affect the reader or something, or it might just be some sort of tubular effect. Either way, this is an interesting part of the article. However, as this is not properly confirmed, I wouldn't be able to say it could affect the reader or be a tubular effect. It's just very interesting to note. If we don't give SCP-40-JP the ability to affect the readers and the tubular effect, and just base it off the other things we had previously said, then SCP-40-JP isn't that powerful compared to other SCPs. For example, SCP-1730 could passively cause all the same effects within an entire SCP Foundation site that he didn't even properly exist in at the time, while also being able to battle the Gate Guardian. Or SCP-3002, an attempt to assassinate Thought, has an even more potent ability, being an info hazard definitely, and being able to affect the O5 members. Meaning, right now, the cat just seems to be overrated. Why do people claim it is one of the strongest SCPs? How can it be overrated and one of the strongest SCPs? Surely, something must be missing. Yes, something was missing. Now, originally, in this part of my video, I was going to talk about the true form that is related to this SCP. However, someone came in clutch. Brazilian Cookie was able to send me some stuff to talk about SCP-40-JP, and when talking with me, I discovered that there is a lot more that I had not realized. For example, one of the links on the SCP Wiki linking to a YouTube video shows this scene where we see an onlooker look at the SCP Wiki from the real world and gets affected by SCP-40-JP. This is the equivalent of affecting someone on the level of Swan's proposal, as it is the equivalent of a real-life person. We also have artwork showing this, with SCP-40-JP appearing in the eye of a real person just from reading about There Is Cats. And we also have an idea of just how much more powerful they are than Swan's proposal, with there being artworks of dozens of cats and pictures of hundreds of cats based on those who have seen. So we're looking at an SCP that is hundreds of times more powerful than Swan's proposal. Now, if you're wondering why being above Swan's proposal is such a big deal, remember this tower of SCP cosmology, or at least a summary of it for people to understand? And at the very top we have the narratives. Well, there's an infinite number of narratives at the top, and at the very top of those narratives is Swan's proposal. They are the authors. So for SCP-40-JP to be able to casually defeat hundreds of authors all at the same time is absolutely incredible. But to be fair, we have even more. Now, in another article, which is very similar to SCP-40-JP, and that is SCP-40-JP-J, which is the same SCP, it talks about how there was an incident where SCP-40-JP was able to beat every single Foundation member and every single person in Japan. Now, normally this wouldn't be very impressive. However, we then have this image where they have the cat and the question of a cat from the Japan branch. Now, no one in the Japan branch is going to ask this, meaning this cat has just soloed every single member of Swan's proposal in the branch of Japan and is moving on to others. Thanks again to Brazilian Cookie, otherwise There Was a Cat would have lost to Site 13 and the attempt to assassinate Thought. It is a pataphysical entity. Now, if you're familiar with SCP and especially the SCP gods, you'll notice a term that's usually tossed around being true forms. For example, we might have SCP-343, despite being called God, the actual being that he is a part of is called the Almighty. That would be 343's true form. Now, it begs the question, does SCP-40-JP have a true form? The answer is yes, but there is another SCP that I think is worth mentioning. Looking at another cat-related SCP, SCP-3318, we can see some very much similarities, with it causing a hazard for people to start perceiving a cat. And we can actually see a partial connection between this one and SCP-40-JP, because after you click a notice on the article, it literally says thank you in the very same manner that the original SCP-40-JP also said thank you, implying that these two could be connected. So there is an implication that SCP-3318 and SCP-40-JP could be avatars of the same being, the God of Cats. On the Chinese branch of the SCP Wiki, we can find a story that is The Song, also known as the Carol of Transcendence. From this tale, we know of two beings who are waging war on each other, and with such force, they destroyed pretty much everything inside the SCP verse. And when they did this, one of the few beings that were able to witness it and not be destroyed by it was known as the Master of Unity, also known as the Cat God. The two beings who were battling are Sam Howell, SCP-3812, the being who is able to transcend the infinite narrative towers in finite time and will continue transcending as that is his narrative, as well as Calvin Desmet. And Calvin Desmet is the third part of Ouroboros. In this part, it is revealed that he is an entity so powerful that he could undo every single anomaly in the SCP verse. And this is what he's doing here. He wants to undo every single anomaly in the SCP verse, destroying all the narratives, but 3812 cannot allow himself to be destroyed. Therefore, they battle. This all may get confusing cosmology-wise, and that's okay. In the same story, they actually have a little report in the middle called the Complete Transcendental Existence Research Report, in which they start describing parts of the cosmology to explain exactly where the cat god is. So if we bring up our old cosmology scaling, we can then say that the multiverse as well as the tree of knowledge are mentioned just here, and the narratives that 3812 all ascended back in his original story before surpassing the author and keep going is over here. Now if we then compare that to where the cat god is, the cat god is what is called a super narrative, which is explained all the way down here and far surpasses anything in the narrative tower. This is truly something worth being one of the strongest SCPs. After the battle between 3812 and the black hole entity, where they destroyed all of the SCP verse, we then know that there are only 3 beings left. Well, actually we know that there are 4 beings left, so we could say that the cat god is top 4 of the SCP verse. However, based on descriptions of the other characters who survived, I would actually suggest the cat god is more like the top 10 of the SCP verse. I'll bring that into perspective in just a moment. If we were to then compare that with the rest of the SCP verse, I'd say about the top 20 to top 30 are within the narrative towers that are described in the story of 3812, which he surpasses, so he's above that in the top 10, obviously. And if we want to look at more where the mid-tiers are, if you remember my previous video for 343, I said that the Almighty is a mid-tier within the SCP cosmology, to sort of show exactly how powerful the cat god is. It's not the strongest SCP, but it's definitely very powerful. However, this is when I start up with the bad news. Sadly, this entire story that is used to describe the cat god and its amazing power is actually in the deleted section of the SCP Wiki. It is still canon, but it is to a different canon to the main canon, so for convenience for this video, I'll just call it non-canon just to keep things nice and simple. I personally like this story. It did have some problems continuity-wise, so I would suggest that In the future, hopefully the SCP Wiki, the Chinese branch, perhaps will group together, fix the continuity errors in it. It's an interesting story. I'll link it in the description below. The small amount of this story that I've talked about in this video is just a portion of the sub-chapter called Final Chapter, which is in the 6th chapter of this story. It's a very long story with a lot of events, so if you want to get into SCP, this might be an interesting story if you do read, even though it's part of a different canon. To summarize, we can start off with SCP-40-JP looking like a normal cognito hazard with some implication that it can affect the reader. Looking at external context, we can then say that actually it can affect the reader and Swan's proposal up to all of Japan, defeating hundreds of members of Swan's proposal all at the same time. We then upgrade this further to that of the Cat God, and the Cat God was so powerful that it would be top 10 in the SCP Wiki if it was part of the main canon, which sadly it is not. Comment down below your thoughts on SCP-40-JP and the Cat God. Do you agree or disagree with the scaling in this video? Do you like the characters? Would you like the Cat God to become canon? Thank you everyone for watching this video. If you like this SCP video, I have an entire SCP playlist as well as many other power scaling videos on my channel, so be sure to check them out. Another popular series is my Beyond Boundless series, which includes so far 2 SCPs. Also check out in the description of this video any of the links to the SCP articles used for the video. Also check out the other channels in the description of the video, other content creators who probably upload faster than me, Captain Forst and Korin Channel. And with that, thank you all for watching.